Hi folks, it's day 35 today. So yeah, I guess I'm over a third of the way through this video diary. I think you're probably quite pleased to hear that, some of you. I know I am. I didn't think I'd get this far, if I'm being honest. And there are days, like most days, I feel like I can't do this. So every day I can do it, it's like an achievement. So if nothing else, it's got to be worth it, right? Today's going to be a tough one, I think. I was going to talk a bit about guilt and how it's kind of defined my life for most of my life, and what a horrible kind of emotion it is. It's quite soul destroying, and it can be really, really destructive to your mental health. But it's something that I think a lot of us kind of deal with on a daily basis. And the reason I want to bring it up today is, unfortunately, Fran's uncle died quite recently, and she went to the funeral today, which is up in Chesterfield. And I originally planned to go with her to be there just to support her and be there for her and show my support to her family, in the way that they've given me so much support over the last couple of years. And I wanted to be there for my wife the way that she's been there for me. Unfortunately, I couldn't go for reasons that I can't talk about, because I promised yesterday I wouldn't talk about it. But I physically wasn't able to make the journey. And we discussed it. We had a long talk about it, and we both decided it was the right decision for me not to go. And my logical brain, I can see the facts and I can see the logic behind the decision, and I know it's the right thing. It was the right thing for me to do, but my emotional brain's kind of kicking me in the nuts, constantly about it. And whether it's the right decision or not, I think there is always going to be an aspect of guilt around decisions like that. Of course I'm going to feel guilty because I'm not there to support, Fran when she needs me. It doesn't matter how justified or logical the decision may be, it's still something tough to deal with. But I find that, this has kind of just made me think a lot about my life. And over the last few weeks especially, I've kind of gone through quite a lot of tough decisions that have left me feeling an overwhelming sense of guilt, even though logically I knew they were all the right decisions for me to make, and they were the right decisions for me, for my kind of health and my mental health. But at the same time, they were really hard decisions to make, because, I'm ultimately I feel like I'm letting somebody down, and that kind of kicks off my guilt complex. So I wanted to go a bit into that, my history with guilt. And I'm sure a lot of depressed people, it's probably one of the major kind of emotions that you go through a lot. You feel guilty about letting people down. I feel awfully guilty. I feel guilty. I feel like I'm letting my family down. I feel like I'm letting my wife down. I feel like I'm letting my friends down. I feel like I'm letting my work and jobs and my work colleagues down. Constantly, I've got this constant feeling of I'm not good enough, and I'm letting everyone around me down. I'm a burden to everyone. So that's where the guilt comes from. And I look back at my life and I see that, I'm probably going to start offending people now. And if I'm being 100% honest, I don't give a shit anymore. I feel like I've spent my whole life trying not to offend people and kind of going along to get along, and, not letting myself put myself first. I've always kind of lived up to other people's expectations of what I should do and how I should act. And, it's been killing me, basically. And I'm getting to a point now where I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to kind of go along to get along. I don't want to, I don't want to feel guilty all the time. I don't want to do that anymore. And yeah, like I say, I'm going to offend quite a few people with this video. It's not my intention, and apologies if you are offended. Um, but yeah, like I've said before, these videos are about my honest truth. This is about me being brutally honest about my life and how my life has been affected by things that have gone into my life. And I need to be honest, because doing something like this, if you hold back, you may as well not do it. And that's the way I feel right now. So when I look back at my life, I go back to my childhood, and I'm a Catholic, so I was raised as an Irish Catholic. And I went to a Catholic school. It wasn't run by like priests or nuns or anything like that, but it was a Catholic school. And yeah, when you're kind of raised as a Catholic, it's almost like you're born guilty of something. You get that feeling, like, people talk about Catholic guilt. That's a real thing, I'm sorry to say, but it is. You're almost made to feel, as soon as you're able to kind of comprehend what's going on, you're almost made to feel like you've immediately offended someone, or you've sinned. You're born bad, effectively. One of the first lessons I think I ever learned as a Catholic is, Jesus died for our sins, not just like their sins back then, but for our sins. Jesus died so we could live, like me, you, everyone in the world. And when you're putting that onto like a 4 or 5-year-old, you're immediately kind of saying to them, you've sinned without even doing anything. You're bad straight away. You're not a good person. And when you're 4 or 5 years old, that sticks, I think, to a certain degree. And it doesn't help that in my school experience, even though it wasn't run by priests or nuns, we weren't taught by anybody in the church. We did have a priest that came on a regular basis to take confessions. So he'd set up in the assembly hall, and he'd sit there all day, just, and we'd all get called in for a confession. And when you're 6 or 7 years old, or 5, I can't remember how young I was the first time, there's not really a lot going on in your life that you can confess to, if I'm being honest. I mean, unless you're a proper little shit, which I'm sure probably a lot of people are, why put that pressure on a kid? Do you know what I mean? It's like, I remember sitting, waiting to go in and just shitting myself, because I'm thinking, I haven't done anything. I don't know what I'm going to say here, but he's going to expect me to, confess to something. So you end up making up things. I did, anyway. I don't know if anyone else did that I went to school with. So you'd make up stuff like, oh, I swore, or, I stole, or, I hit someone, or I had a fight with somebody. I used to make up all sorts of stuff because I thought that's what he wanted to hear. It was kind of like he was there to hear my confession, And again, when you're putting that on a child, I don't think that's a good message to put across, because when you're that age, that's when you're kind of absorbing everything around you. That's where all the input's coming in, and you're kind of basing your view of the world on, the people you view as that are important in your life. And when a priest is coming to your school on a regular basis and expecting you to kind of go through this whole confession process, I think it's ridiculous. I really do. And I used to hate it. I really did, because when you lied, when I made up stuff because I felt that's what I had to do, I went away feeling guilty for something I hadn't even done, but I felt guilty because I'd lied about it. And that lie, like I'd lied, so I had sinned, so I am guilty. So it's kind of like this weird catch-22. I couldn't win in that situation, and I feel like it does stick with you. It sounds trivial probably to some people, but yeah, it really stuck with me. And I went through the whole works. I went First Communion. I've been confirmed, so I'm covered. Catholicism wise, I paid my dues growing up, but it was something I always had an issue with right from a very early age. And as soon as I was able to make a choice for myself, rather than having it imposed on me by my school or the local church or my parents, I just turned away from it completely. And yeah, I still feel that way. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit here and slag off like religion and Catholicism, because people do believe and people have faith, and I respect that. I respect anybody's faith and what they believe in. It's up until the point where they start imposing it onto me. That's where I start having issues. And unfortunately, being brought up as a Catholic, that happens from day one almost. It's almost imposed upon you. It's like, you have to believe in this. This is the way the world is. So I really fought against it, but not outwardly, inwardly, because, I didn't want confrontation with people in my life. I didn't want confrontation with my parents. I didn't want confrontation with my school. So I just went along with the whole religious kind of education thing. But inside I was kind of like, I don't believe this. I don't believe in any of this. And in some ways I envy people that do have this faith, that have total faith in and belief, because I don't have that. But at the same time, like, my non-belief is my belief. So if I can respect your belief in something, you in turn have to respect that I don't believe. So it works both ways. And I feel that for most of my life I kind of didn't say that, or I didn't make that clear. Again, I went along with it all just to kind of meet expectations that I thought people had of me. And I hated it. I hated every minute of it, pretty much. And I'm not saying that, just because I don't believe in organised religion. I think that's where my issues are coming in. It's kind of, I don't believe in organised religions like Catholicism or Hinduism or Sikhism or anything like that. But that doesn't mean I'm not a spiritual person, I do believe that, we are kind of, there is something greater than us. There's some sort of force in the universe that connects all of us and connects everything, and physics are starting to kind of prove that at the moment with like quantum theory and things like that. So when I say I'm not religious, I'm not saying I'm not a spiritual person, not at all. I'm a very spiritual person. I've got quite a lot of alternative theories about the life and things. It's just where organised religion comes in, and it's almost like you've got a middleman between you and something that's essentially unknowable. So how can that middleman be able to tell you anything of any relevance? Because they don't know. They can't know because it's unknowable. So, I think it's ridiculous, personally. That's my personal opinion. I know a lot of my family are very religious, strict Catholics. Again, I'm probably offending you by, saying this, but that's just my opinion. That's my view of the world. And yeah, it kind of promotes guilt from day one, this whole idea that you need to atone, that, like, so many things are sins in life. It's just ridiculous. And I think I'm going to try not to get too deep into this, because I feel like I'm about to explode with a lot of anger that I've kind of had pent up for a long time, and I don't want to do that. But yeah, I think the final nail in the coffin for religion for me was when my mum passed. And it was really hard to take. It was a horrible experience, and it was made worse by certain kind of religious processes that had to be done after she died. For me personally, I'm not going to talk about other people's views on this, but for me personally, it was one of the worst experiences of my life. When my mum passed, I just wanted time to come to terms, to kind of not even accept it, but I wanted time to grieve, I guess. I wanted time to absorb what had happened. I mean, this is one of the most, it was the most immense thing that's ever happened to me in my life. and I wanted time to kind of get a handle on it and to grieve in my own way. But for various reasons, that wasn't possible at the time. Yeah, I didn't get the time that I needed, and essentially, Irish funerals are a lot different to English funerals, and so when someone dies, you don't get that time, because you have to open, kind of like within a day, you have to open your home to the community. You have to bring the body home to display, and open your home to the community for 2 days so they can come and mourn and pass on their respects. And I mean, it's a great idea. It's nice that people get the opportunity to come and pay their respects. I think that's a nice part of it. But for the people involved, for me personally, again, I'm not going to talk about anybody else's experience. This is my experience. It's almost like I had to put my grief aside. I wasn't allowed to feel it. I had to kind of put it away and be there and be present for these people that came into our home. It was people I knew and people I was glad to see, I guess, at the time, but so many people I didn't know, so many people I still don't know and probably will never know. And you had to kind of be on show for these people and share the experience with them, and I didn't want that, and I never want that. So yeah, 2 days of putting your own feelings on hold, almost, for the sake of others, I guess, and because expectations says that this is how we do things, and this is how it's going to be, and this is what you're going to do. So yeah, for me that was I wasn't particularly keen on religion and Catholicism up until then, but that kind of destroyed it for me completely. I went through a very dark period, where I hated even the mention of God. I'm never going to forget that experience, and that experience tainted my life in some ways. I just want to say on videos, this is a permanent record, I guess. When I die, whenever it's going to be, I don't know. Hopefully not for a while. I don't want any of that bullshit, because to me it's bullshit. I want people to be able to grieve the way they want to grieve. I just want to be cremated and scattered, and I want people to get drunk and have a laugh and remember me for, the good things. I don't want people to kind of put me on show and have a procession of strangers, going over all the details again and again and again. It's almost like you're trapped in hell in some ways. It's the cycle of talking about it when I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to deal with it. I just wanted to hide away and grieve, and I never got that opportunity. And it hurts now even thinking about it. And again, I'm probably offending my entire family with this video, and that's not my intention. I just wanted to be honest about how I feel. And I know that since then, after the funeral, I've gone along to certain, ceremonies and anniversary masses and graveyard masses and things like that, and I've done it because of other people's expectations of me, not because I wanted to be there. And every time I've done it, I've felt like a hypocrite, and I am being a hypocrite by doing it. But I was doing it for other people, for the sake of other people, for the sake of sparing other people's feelings, not wanting to confront people about how I feel. And I'm tired of that, you know. And I don't want to feel guilty about that. I don't want to feel guilty about things anymore. Guilt's not a productive emotion. It's not a productive feeling. It's not... Nothing good can come from it. And even now, knowing that I've said all this stuff, I feel guilty because I know that maybe my family are going to watch this and maybe they haven't realised how I've felt about these things. And I'm not trying to offend them. I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings. And I don't want to feel guilty about hurting people's feelings just because I'm expressing my truth, I guess. So yeah, essentially, it's tough today. I feel for Fran more than anything. I feel for her mum. Her mum's just lost her brother. You know, Fran's lost her uncle. Her sisters have lost their uncle. I wanted to kind of be there to be part of it, but I couldn't be. And as much as it was the right decision, it still hurts, and it's probably going to hurt for a while. And some of the other decisions I've made recently are still hurting, and I don't know if there's an answer. You know, when you've lived your whole life, when you've become conditioned to kind of guilt as your default setting automatically, it's a hard thing to kind of change, I suppose. But all we can do is try. So, yeah, I'm going to leave it there, folks. And again, apologies if I've upset anyone.